Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today I read Captain Atom number 2 from 1987. Now we were promised guest appearances by 4 major players, Batman, Superman, Firestorm, and Blue Beetle, and we did get them as cameos. It was very deceptive because they're really only on about 2 pages, but we see these 4 heroes thinking their thoughts, and yeah, it's sort of, Batman's kind of like, I don't trust anybody, I'm Batman. Superman's like, yay, another hero. And Firestorm's like, I'm better than him. And Blue Beetle's over in Chicago, and he says something about like, oh, another superhero. I got a weird feeling I already know this guy from somewhere. And that's because they're both from Charlton Comics. So funny little plug there for comic historians to giggle at. But anyway, our story opens on the next page, and our story is written by Cary Bates, pencils by Pat Broderick, ink by Bob Smith, colors by Carl Gafford, John Costanza the letterer, Denny O'Neil was the editor. So we are introduced to Captain Atom in leisure suit in his human guise, and he's talking about how he is undercover as Cameron Scott, and he's playing around with the name, trying to remember it, and a drunk guy at the bar says something to him, and he's obviously undercover, but, nobody else knows that. So this drunk guy gives him some crap, and they go outside to fight each other, and that's obviously the informant. His name is Felipe. He's supposed to be whatever group that he's trying to infiltrate, and this is supposed to be his contact. But the guy pulls out a sap and goes after him, and Captain Atom quickly makes short work of him. And the woman that was with the guy comes out and introduces herself. She's the one he's supposed to actually meet. So the lady says, nice to meet you, and drops a little gas pellet and then disappears. And he's like, okay, whatever. This isn't really me any more than the Silver Freak is. So we cut over to the military base where Captain Ealing and Dr. Mangala are. They're talking about Captain Atom and their plan for him. Captain Atom is looking at a video store and thinking about all the things that have changed and how he left in 1968 during Vietnam and how much things are so different now. Then a man comes up to him and starts talking to him, and it's his contact for the general. Captain Atom says that he's very upset with what's going on and that Ealing better have the information he asked for when he gets back, or he'll lose his temper. And the world isn't ready to see me lose my temper, he says. So it's pretty cool. We cut around a little bit to like the briefing stuff. There's a lot of backstory here, a lot of build up, but then we go forward. Cameron Scott, Captain Atom, is set to meet up with this lady and her team, and he's promptly bonked on the head. Now, while he's in human form, he's just a normal human, is what we learn. The alloy shell actually is like reabsorbed into his skin somehow. It's a little vague, but he's bonded with it. It's part of him, it's just not always on. Which they kind of implied that he was just changing the color and shape of his form, not necessarily removing the alloy in the previous issue. So this is an interesting way to make him a little more human. But when he wakes up, he is tied up with a bomb on his chest. He's watching a video of the woman tell him that, I'm sorry, but we know that the cops are trying to infiltrate us, and we can't verify that you're on our side or not. So think of yourself as a sacrifice for the cause. Now, interestingly, the woman leading the group is Plastique. She's a regular Captain Atom villain that appeared in a Firestorm issue, but she becomes a regular for Captain Atom. She is a French-Canadian separatist, so she wants Quebec to form its own country, and that's not the type of terrorist you usually see in comics. So, and this was the mid-'80s, so that sort of thing was still pretty, they didn't really talk about that here in the States. Captain Atom has to switch into his silver form, and it sets the bomb off at the same time because his perspiration was what would trigger the bomb. So the only way he could avoid that was to transform. And he flies out real fast but manages to grab some maps off the wall. The scientists analyze the maps while Cameron Scott is goofing around trying to figure out what's going on. And in the meantime, the president of the US and the prime minister of Canada are having a meeting. And who's in the audience but Plastique? And during this time, Captain Atom runs into his old friend, Jeff Goslin, or Gaz as he calls him, who's much older now, and he reveals himself to him, and They have a little bit of a reunion where they hug it out. But then that's when they're interrupted and told that the plans that Captain Atom recovered from this building before it blew up were actually a map of the capital of Canada, the Canadian Parliament in Ottawa. So Captain Atom's off to see the wizard, manages to snatch up a suicide bomber. The guy's vest goes off in the atmosphere over St. Lawrence River, and the guy's dropped into the water. Then Captain Atom figures out there's another bomb, and it's in the Statue of Liberty, and he goes there and pulls the lady out, but she triggers her device before he can save her and remove the belt safely. So she blows up over the New York harbor. And then he's off to stop Plastique, who is trying to assassinate the president and the prime minister on live TV. And she thinks those bombs have gone off. Thankfully, Captain Atom shows up just in time to take a massive energy blast because she has energy abilities, and he takes it to the chest and knocks her out. And the knockout photo is the cover of Today's Life magazine, and we get another recap on the borders, which is a really cool way of doing it. Magazines in the center and the four heroes around the border. Superman's impressed, Batman's impressed, Blue Beetle's impressed, and Firestorm is mildly jealous because he fought Plastique before, and he thinks he's gonna have to prove that this guy is some kind of small-time hero. So that was the entire issue. It was a great issue, real good story, self-contained story. For a 75-cent cover price and only being 22 pages, they really packed a lot into it. There's a lot going on here. It'd make a great TV episode. Cary Bates was really underrated here. This was a great issue. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was a great read. There's actually a lot of talking in here, which kind of surprised me. But it all works for the story. It's very narrative driven. And I really like the series so far. I forgot that I really enjoyed this series when I was younger, but I never read the first couple of issues. I'd only read recaps of them. I think I was missing like the first 5 or 6 issues, and I really enjoyed this. I think it's really good. I haven't read any Captain Atom in 15 years probably, so it was nice to see that this really held up well, and he was a really underrated character. But I thought it was a really fun book, and I'm hoping that you'll take my advice and go out and check it out. It's not expensive to pick these up. They should have reprinted these, honestly. I'm hoping issue 3 will be just as good, and it looks like it probably will. But in the meantime, I highly recommend it. The cover's really dynamic too. I really like that. It looks like a really cool poster, so it'd make for a cool pinup if nothing else. And you've got a lot going on there. So, but yeah, it's awesome all around. Great storytelling, good art, all around a good read. So that'll do it for this episode. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.